You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for another episode of Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Colby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today we're going to talk about managing your expectations. And that's a good topic again.
It is a very good topic. We were actually just talking about this before we started recording because we were talking about this particular podcast, and setting our expectations. It's really easy in business to get discouraged, I find, regardless of what business you're in. And so I think one of the best things you can do for yourself and for your business is to set your expectations as early as possible. Like not just what your goals are, but what your expectations are in the now, like when you first start out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just hit the nail on the head again. You said goals, and then you also mentioned expectations, and they're two very different things. Like
very different,
you can set your goals sky high and work towards achieving them, but your expectations don't necessarily have to be that high. You can set a goal, but then deep down say, well, okay, if I hit that goal, great. But if I don't hit that goal, and maybe also think about it in terms of, it doesn't matter if I don't hit that goal or if I hit a lesser goal, because that's what I sometimes do. I set a really high goal and then I'm just happy to reach half of it.
Right.
Which is silly, really, because then what's the point of having a goal? But whatever works for you, I think that is the best way. And that seems to be working for me. And I also find that I've really lowered my expectations, and that's really been helpful as well. So I see a lot of people going into business, especially self-publishing, with really high expectations. And I think,
yes,
on the one hand, I think good for them because they obviously believe in themselves. But on the other hand, I worry that they're not going to achieve what they set out to achieve, because you and me both know how hard it is. And we look at them and we think, maybe if you lower your expectations, it kind of helps you. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe.
No, I agree. One of my biggest fears, and I've seen it so many times in this industry, is people, having these expectations and then not reaching it. And then they think they did something wrong and then they just quit. And I know I've mentioned that numerous times over these podcasts, but I really think that one of the biggest differences between people who succeed in this business and those who don't is the ones that don't quit before they did. And I think part of it is sitting back and asking yourself, are the expectations that I have, one, are they realistic? And two, and this is a big one, is, are they mine? Are they my expectations, or are they expectations that I've kind of just taken over based on commercials I've seen on YouTube, or a post I saw on Facebook where they say, you can do this in 3 easy steps and make $10,000 a month. Is it that expectation? Is it that $10,000 a month? Well, that didn't come from me. That came from, somebody else. And so I think those are two really important things is, are they realistic? Which in that particular case, one, it's not yours, and two, it wasn't realistic, and so really just sitting back and saying, okay, what do I need to accomplish? How quickly do I need to accomplish it? And then see, is that realistic in this business model? Because it's, like you said, it's not easy. It's not get rich quick.
Absolutely. And I think, again, you mentioned something really important. Is it your expectations, or is it somebody else's? Is it peer pressure as well? Is it because everybody around you is saying, oh, you can do this and you can do that? And you see maybe other people, maybe you're watching our videos or you see our content and you think, well, if they can do it, it must be really easy. But then, when I first started, I gave myself a year. So I think expectations can also be, they can be changing. They can be, you can adapt them to how you are achieving and how you're getting along with it. So for me, it's kind of like I set them quite low, and then if I achieve anything, it's like, wow, I've achieved this much. And that's been working really well for me. I know that's not everybody's idea of it, but I think that it's helped me in some way. And I don't know why that helps, because on the one hand, I think that you should have goals and you should definitely work towards something.
Right.
But on the other hand, I set my expectations quite low. So I don't know how to marry that in my own mind, how to explain that. But I
Yeah,
think you
no,
made some really good points there.
yeah, I agree. I think that especially starting out, you need to, again, you can have lofty goals. You know, again, we're talking goals versus expectations, two different things. So you can have, you know, these lofty goals and shoot for the moon if you want. But you need to, and it's really early on that you realize what's realistic. You know, what can I realistically do based on either the discretionary time or discretionary funds that I have, because that's really what it all comes down to. You know, it's either you're spending either time or you're spending money, one or the other. And so you need to figure out, you know, what you can give, and then based on that, decide what a realistic expectation is. And I agree with what you said before, that, you know, you as you accomplish these different, you know, little mini goals, if you want to set them, you know, call them that, then you can start changing your expectations. Okay, you know what? I can put a little more time into this. I can make, if we're talking about, you know, publishing books, I can spend a little money and make those covers look better. You know, again, investing back into your business, which we can do a whole nother episode just on that. But yeah, it's something that, you know, setting your expectations early on, I think, is the most important thing, because that is what's going to really drive a lot of how you feel you're doing in your business. And especially when you're first starting out, you know, a lot of times, at least in my experience, when I'm starting a new business, there's that fear of the unknown, that fear of failure. And so if you don't have your expectations set, if you have them set too high early on, that's when I find you can really lead into the, you know, negative thoughts, basically, you know, thinking of quitting or whatever. This just doesn't work. Because, you know, like you said with us, I mean, it may look like, you know, oh, Keith did this, and you know, if Keith can do it, I can do it. I've been publishing books since 2016. You know, I didn't just start last year. So it has been, you know, a slow progress.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what you, and also what you said earlier really really ran true with me, when you said about people give up when they don't reach their expectations and they give up too early. And I think that's where you have to find the balance in the kind of expectations that keep you going, because it's all about not giving up sometimes. It's all about giving it time. So there's a time frame involved as well. So maybe give yourself a really long time frame in which to achieve something, or in which to not expect much. So I think that's how I did it, because I gave myself a long time to get somewhere. I didn't even have a goal as such. Actually, I did have a goal. I wanted to earn as much from home as I was going out to work. So that in a way was my goal. It's not very specific, but it kind of is. And that's it. And it's also about being flexible. You know, when you're expecting something and you see that you're not quite getting there, you start to realize how much work it actually is. Then just rethink your expectations and just sort of adapt them to the reality of your business, because there's two things. There's the reality and there is the expectation, and they can be very different things. But yeah, I think the main thing for me is when I see people who are expecting quite a lot, I wonder where that comes from. And I think it's because you touched on that earlier. It's seeing other people saying you can do this very easily, you can start this without any knowledge, you can invest in this, and you know, it's not going to cost you anything. And you always have to look at those things and take them with a pinch of salt, really, and really look behind the scenes. And for example, I post my income reports quite often on YouTube, and they've been getting really good recently, and I'm really happy with the results. But I don't want people to think that it's been easy to get there, and I don't want them to think that this is definitely something they can do. They can, but they're going to have to do the same amount of work and the same amount of time spent on the business, and there's so much more to it. It's not a quick thing.
Right.
And that is the danger, that I sometimes wonder whether I shouldn't really post those kind of videos, because on the one hand, they can be encouraging, but on the other hand, they can set false expectations. And that would be the last thing that I want to do really with them. But I don't know. I mean, it's a tricky one. It's not an easy thing to really know about, and I'm not an expert in expectations because I'm still struggling with it myself, you know.
Yeah, it's no, I mean, and getting real quick to what you're talking about income reports. I mean, I agree. I mean, I can see both sides. I think the way you do them is probably the best way you can, because you're sharing it to encourage, but then you're telling people when you're doing it that, this isn't a guarantee. This, this took a lot of time. You're resetting those expectations verbally as you're showing them what they could achieve, and people can achieve more than that. One thing I wanted to cover as far as expectations is, and it's another kind of difference in different types of expectations that I just thought of, and that is the expectations you have for your business versus the expectations you have for yourself. So, expectations of your business, meaning, what are you expecting your business to do for you? But then you need to set an expectation as to what you're going to do for your business, And so if you're not getting the results that you want from your business, if your business isn't meeting the expectations you've set, then you may want to look at resetting the expectations of what you're putting into the business. That's happened to me, especially early on. I was like, well, this is what I want to be making. And the business wasn't doing that. Well, the business is just a result of the work that I've put in. And so if it's not giving me back what I need and what I expected, then I must not be putting enough in to meet that. So I need to either change the expectations on what I'm expecting the business to do for me and achieve, or I need to change my input into it. Those videos that we talk about where they say, you can, make $10,000 in a month or whatever in 3 easy steps. It goes back to what I was saying before about you're either spending time or money. If it's that easy, it's because they want you spending your money. You're spending your money to pay them to do it for you. That's why it's easy. It's not easy for them, but you're paying for it. So it makes it easy on you. So again, you really need to think of, when you hear those commercials and things like that, take a step back and kind of think of, where are they coming from? Why is it so easy? Or why is it going to be so easy for me? Well, because I'm going to pay somebody else to do it for me, And again, if that's your business model, if you have more discretionary funds and you want to, get started, really fast, then that may be something for you. I definitely suggest still looking into them and making sure that, what they're doing is, on par with what's expected in the industry. Because there's a lot out there, especially in self-publishing, where that you pay them and they're doing things that could very easily cost you your KDP account or Ingram Spark account or Lulu or wherever.
We see it all the time, don't we?
Yeah. Because they're successful at something doesn't mean they're doing it the right way. And I've seen a lot of businesses, like I said, I've been doing this since 2016. So I've seen a lot of publishing, people with just innocent, reasoning, and thought they were doing the right thing because they were taught by the wrong person, and so they thought they were doing everything right, and they're making a decent amount of money, and then their account gets closed down because KDP, does these periodic, just, mass, checks and then just, starts, terminating accounts. And when it comes to especially KDP, but other platforms as well, you're playing in their sandbox. And so, we don't pay anything to have our stuff published up there. And so in their terms of service, it says that they can close us down for little or no reason.
That's true.
And so you really need to make sure that if you are paying somebody to either to coach you or to do it for you or whatever, that both you and they are following the terms of service of whatever platform you're doing it on.
Absolutely.
And obviously I'm talking about self-publishing, but this can go for anything, whether it's doing YouTube videos or, or any other business. If you're going to pay a consultant, basically, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing and that they're consulting using best practices.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you just make me think of something else. And what you said about you playing in Amazon sandbox, and you have to abide by their rules or any platform that you're using for your business. And that affects your expectations as well, because your expectations could be something that doesn't align with the platform's expectation of you. So that's another thing. There's a lot of people that expect quite a lot from Amazon, and Amazon, they don't owe you anything,
No, they do not.
It's free to publish on their site, so they really don't owe you anything, and your expectations have to be set accordingly to that as well.
Yeah, they don't have to promote your stuff. They don't have to. Your books or whatever you're selling is just one of millions on their platform. Yeah. And like you said, they don't owe you anything. I mean, they're giving you their traffic. That's if anything, you owe them. Yeah. And so, and again, we could do a whole nother episode just on this, but I would say when it comes to setting expectations and let's say selling books, the best place you can do it, the best sandbox, if you will, would be your own website. Mm-hmm. But again, if you have your own website, then you need to set expectations on how many sales you really think you're going to get. Yeah. How much traffic are you going to get to your website? And unless you're, paying for traffic to come from somewhere else, if you're just expecting organic traffic to find your website on the internet, you need to set that expectation accordingly. Right. You're not going to be selling, especially, early on, the same amount. You're not going to be getting the same amount of eyes on your book on your website as Amazon gets on their website, obviously. Yeah. But it conversely, I mean, that's the best way to do any kind of sale really is to really make them your customers. If they come to your website, if they are on your newsletter, then they're your customer. Yeah. And again, we could do a whole nother episode on that.
We could.
But yeah, I did want to tie it to the whole expectations,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Seeing what's realistic, and again, like you said, especially early on. And I think that's the key is knowing going in that, this isn't going to be get rich quick. I need to, and this goes for whatever business you do. Whether you're selling on Etsy or you've got eBay or you've got a jewelry business or whatever, it's, until you first get, until you start out, no one even knows you exist majority of the time. If you were just to start a restaurant, you're not going to expect to be making, thousands of dollars a day, right off the gate.
Yeah. See, that is what people expect a lot of times though, which I find, I think it's because you and me, we've been in this for a bit longer. Before we did this, we did other things that were kind of similar in the sense that they were business related, and we kind of know how hard everything is. There's no easy way ever. And anyone
if there was, everybody'd do it, right?
Exactly, and this is it, people do expect to get very quick returns sometimes, and I've found I'm getting the same sort of expectations in the publishing world than I was getting in the retail world when I was selling jewelry, and I had a little community of sellers that were selling on eBay, on Amazon, on their own platform, on Etsy, And it's always that thing about, oh, I'm going to sell on Etsy, or I'm going to sell on eBay, and I'm going to make $1,000 per month, and blah, blah, blah. And then when they realize that actually there are a lot of rules that you have to follow, and you have to jump through all these different hoops to even be able to put your stuff on those platforms. And then selling is another different thing.
Right.
And when you see them with all their expectations, and you kind of feel sorry because you think, they've just got big hopes for their business, like we all have when we first start something. And you kind of wish them well, but it's just not going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, the first thing they blame is the platform. Well, Etsy is just saturated, or Etsy is just so and so. And the same is happening now on Amazon KDP. I see the exact same pattern everywhere. So, and it is to do with expectations. So, it can work, but you have to really expect exactly what it's going to be like and see the reality of it.
I think you actually just touched on something that was you just briefly touched on it, but it's a really good point. And that is, are we talking about, are you setting an expectation, or is it your hope? Is it what you want or what you're expecting? Expecting is what, like your bills are expecting to get paid. If you own a home, they're expecting that you pay the mortgage. That's an expectation. A hope is they're hoping you pay them more. That kind of stuff. And so you really need to figure out what a realistic, and unfortunately there is no one size fits all when it comes to expectations or goals or anything like that, because everybody's situation is different. That's why a lot of people nowadays have been doing these, side hustles or whatever they want to call them. And that's because you can start out with a lower expectation, because you're not going all in, but you are, but it does go back to what I was saying. What you expect from the business is going to be directly related to what you expect to put into the business. It's, again, either money or time. And so there is no right or wrong. The biggest thing I really wanted to point out in this podcast is that I just hate to see people set unrealistic expectations, especially early on, and then get deterred when they don't see those come to fruition, and then just quit. I see so many people with great potential that just don't give themselves enough time.
No, this has been, I've learned something here, because it wasn't very clear in my mind. I kept thinking, well, why am I setting my expectations so low? I think after this podcast, I think that's not a bad thing.
It's not. I always try to set my expectations. It's funny you say realistic expectations, but what's realistic to you is different than me. But I really do think it comes down to how much effort and energy and time you have to put into whatever you're doing. And so I don't like to have super low expectations, because then it's like I'm not really achieving anything. Then it takes me longer to get to that goal that we talked about. But by knowing what's realistic, how many hours can I realistically put into this? How many books can I realistically publish? How much can I afford to promote on Amazon ads or whatever? That kind of me putting into it, looking at that helps me decide, okay, if I can put this much into it, this is what I expect the result can be. And that's also going to change as you get more familiar with your industry, because I know, I'm way better at ads than I used to be. I'm able to run ads that are pretty much as efficient as I can make them, and so because of that, I know I can put in less and get back more. So I know kind of what that relationship is as far as like how much I put in versus how much I get back. So then I can set my expectations accordingly. I can expect if I spend 1,000 in ads, that I'm going to get X amount back, that kind of thing. And so the same thing with my time. If I put out a new book in this niche, I can expect, based on my previous experience, doing other books or whatever, again, whatever your business is, based on my experience with the others, I can make an expectation as to what I'm going to get back from it. So it really is going to evolve as your business evolves.
Yes, absolutely. No, I think this has been a really good subject. It's kind of cleared up a few things in my own mind. I wasn't quite sure what to say about this, if I'm honest, because it's quite a abstract concept, expectation, right, isn't it? It's like, I don't know. As you said, I mean, there's a difference between hope, expectations, what is a realistic expectation.
Yeah.
It's not quite clearly defined in my eyes, but it's made it clearer now for me. Yeah.
And just for the viewers and listeners, we don't plan these podcasts ahead of time. Like, we don't script them, if you can't tell, because it's a mastermind. We're just chatting. We have a topic that we literally pick right before we come on air, and then we just talk about it. So that's just right. a little bit of behind the scenes. So yeah, we that's kind of one reason why we kind of feed off of each other and things that we bring up. So this has been another great episode, Nuria. I want to thank you to all the listeners and viewers that came to tag along. If you like this, consider following on your, either on YouTube or on the podcast platform that you prefer, and think about leaving us a review. It really means the world to us.
It does.
All right. Until next week, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Colby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.